And again, we are in one of the Keep Teaching workshops that we have. It's the tips for engaging online sessions with Blackboard Collaborate. So I like to just repeat the title here so the recording is able to catch it. And I am Jennifer Mattingly. I'm going to go ahead and show you me a little bit here as we do that. So hello everybody and welcome. So glad to have you here. So I am the online teaching coordinator here at NIU. I am excited to share a little bit about some of the collaboration techniques and way to make things engaging in these online sessions. I do a lot of workshops this way, so it's nice when you can have connection back and forth with the participants. Just like we're in our classrooms and like to connect with our students that way, we also can find ways to do that here in the online Collaborate sessions and these synchronous sessions. So I'm excited about this particular workshop. I'm going to go ahead and shut off my camera for this for now, just to keep us focused on the slides and the presentation, but also just to save on bandwidth for that. So welcome everybody. I'm so glad you're here. So why don't we go ahead and hear who is with us. So in the text chat area, if you could share your department, where you're kind of housed in, the city where you're joining us from. It's just kind of interesting to me to see where everybody is connecting from. And then also I've borrowed this for our colleague. If you were in my workshop yesterday, you also had seen me do this, but if you will pick one of the emojis here, just to kind of tell us what your current mood is. How are you doing? So go ahead and use that chat feature to connect. I'll give you a little bit of time. Sometimes it takes a little bit to think through. So as you're doing that, as you're thinking through that, I'm going to go ahead and move to different parts of the presentation. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time for folks to do. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. Hi, Reza. How are you doing? It's good to have you here. Naperville, yes, it's very sunny. It's sunny here too in Rockford. So we've got people in Sycamore and Oak Park. Awesome. And people from a bunch of different disciplines too. Hey, Rob. So wonderful. Milwaukee. Okay. Awesome. And music. That's fun. You're feeling like is that a wizard? That's awesome. I love that. So Lydia, cool. Maybe the butterfly is that you're going into new areas and kind of experiencing, transforming into something a little bit different. So glad we've got a lot of happy folks or chilled out folks here as well. So again, yay, I got that right, Lydia. That's exciting. Okay, wonderful. So I hope I think we've all kind of been that butterfly where, we have transitioned into things maybe that we never really thought that we necessarily expected to or we're planning on going in. So it's an interesting time for all of us. So I'm glad to see how much the NIU community has connected and really worked hard to serve our students as well. So kudos to all of you who are working so hard for that too. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about yes, collaborate, and yes, online sessions, but we're really going to focus into the active learning and that how to make them a little more engaging. So just like something that we've done in the text. And so I came across an article that was interesting. It's actually made by a company, but it's not necessarily a scholarly article, but it had a really good point, and that they talked about 3 different content areas to look at. So is there information, materials that participants can read and review on their own? And if that's so, do you really need to have a synchronous session about that? So where we're looking at is maybe some of that knowledge and information that being able to interact with a subject matter expert, that might be a really good thing to put onto the synchronous sessions. And then also that shared knowledge and experiential learning that they can connect with. You can do that you can also do that in an asynchronous format, but sometimes we like to put that in synchronous sessions too and be able to connect in real time. So to me, those are 2 really good areas as to why you might choose to have a synchronous session. And then looking at this was from an article that was a paper that was part of a conference presentation. There were some best practices as to how do you interact in these synchronous sessions or these online workshops. And it followed a lot of what we do, so I liked it. So I wanted to make sure I give credit, but this is kind of how we proceed with ours, so I liked how well it aligned. One of the things we're going to talk about is getting those introductions and orienting people to the session itself and to the tool you're using. Second one is informing them about what's happening and how we're proceeding. 3, we're going to look at active learning and feedback. I think that is the area. I know. This is the area that we're going to focus on the most. And then we're also looking a little bit about how we can humanize the environment, and then just how you close and follow up, and all keeping that engaging. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is introducing people to the platform you're using, oriented them. So you can see we do a lot of these practices already with our Faculty Development and Instructional Design Center, and we're doing workshops. We go ahead and provide you with information ahead of time. So for these particular things, we don't really need you to prep anything. We just want to make sure that you know how to access, how to get in there, a little bit of troubleshooting if you're not sure how to connect, or if you're maybe having problems like with audio. So we want to just give you that information. We of course give you the link to how to get here. You know a little bit about what the session is through the course description. So those are all things that we try to give you. And then also maybe when you're teaching a course, depending on what type of interaction that you're having in the online synchronous session, you might want to give them the agenda of what you're covering. You may also want to give them prep work to do. Maybe there's specific reading, or maybe there's some type of assessment that you want them to have done before they can come in, so you can discuss it. So just like when you really want your students to read before they come into the face-to-face classroom, you want them to be able to make sure that they are prepared for what's going to happen in the synchronous session, giving them a heads up about that, being really specific about what you want them to have done before they come, really can help your students get acquainted with what you're doing. Also giving the tour, just like we do in the beginning, to let them know where certain things are, where they can connect with the chat, where they can maybe share information and all of that. So that is a good thing to connect with there. And finally, doing little things like icebreakers, even just a little bit that we see that people are in Central Illinois. Mariana, I think you've got some weather coming your way, so I hope you stay safe in all of that. So folks in Elgin and St. Charles. So it's really interesting to see where everybody is and connecting with people. It's good to be able to balance that chat out. You're able to pull that information and connect with people that way. So I like that even as a facilitator or an instructor, that I'm able to connect with the participants who are in there, and even though it's not face-to-face, it still gives that interactivity there. Also part of informing, also the other thing that the article talked about from Badia and Carlissimo is informing. And so this is kind of what we typically think as the lecture part and giving information. Rose, I'm glad you got in. I'm sorry that it sounded like you were having some trouble, so I'm glad you're here. So thank you so much for joining us. We're just starting out, so you haven't missed too much. And for everybody, just a reminder, we are recording this, so if there's something you want to go back to reference, you can do that. I was talking about informing and how it's a little bit like our lecture part. One of the things that the article was talking about that I thought was pretty good is session length. So I don't know about you, but sometimes after we do one of these synchronous sessions, we're a little bit worn out because we're a little active, we're on there. We want to pay attention to students' attention spans and ability to concentrate, and just being even in this format on the computer can be fatiguing at times. So we really want to think about, do we need marathon sessions online, or are there things, and there may not be things, it works a little differently than how we do lectures, and so we can't always cover in the same amount of time. That's where we go back to those 3 areas to consider, those 3 content areas. Are there maybe some things that students can do asynchronously and save the stuff that really is important to do synchronously for your sessions to keep them kind of brief. So try not to do super long sessions to make sure that people are engaged. If for some reason that's really important, you want to make sure that you build in breaks. Maybe if you have other speakers able to come in, rotate a little bit, or even like sometimes in my classes, I work to intersect some lecture type of stuff with activity stuff. And so think through the flow of your own workshops as well when you're doing them online. Are there interactive pieces that you can add in there? Informing is also those slides and live demonstrations where you can go and you can certainly demonstrate to your webcam if you're doing that. In Blackboard Collaborate, you can also go and connect with different web pages and be able to show that on your screen as well. So that's a way. Another thing about informing is those verbal cues that we give. So just like when I spoke about how I was going to be quiet for a little bit as the recording started, just let students know what's happening, or your participants know what's happening. So if something, if it goes silent, people aren't wondering, uh-oh, did I get disconnected or something was wrong there. So having those verbal cues and just talking about what you're doing and what students will see will be really helpful for them. So now we're getting to kind of the heart and the meat of our workshop today, and I think that's why a lot of you are on here, and it's this active learning and feedback. So what are some ways that we can really start to engage and make connections with our students in these workshops? So there are 4 different areas I'm going to look at. It's going to be independent activities, questioning, group work, and being able to assess engagement. So the first one I'm going to talk about is some independent activities. So these are just things that you can assign to students, maybe have some of them ready, but these are things that students can kind of do and then bring back to the group in a sense. So one thing could be doing a scavenger hunt. So maybe you ask students to do some type of web search about information. Maybe I think of like if I've done things with integrated marketing communications, and maybe if you want them to go and find a website that really aligns with somebody's brand and be able to bring it back and talk about it. So that might be something that you can do. You can give them a problem to solve. Even it's something if they have to put on, they can even jot it down on paper and hold it up to the webcam. So we don't have to always go super high tech with some of this stuff. But if they have some type of problem they solve that they work on independently, and then being able to show their work or talk about that as well. So that's an option. One thing I thought of too is in one of my face-to-face classes, we do a behavioral styles assessment. And then once people, it's a really quick thing, it only takes a couple minutes to do, people get grouped into different behavioral styles, and then we group them together to let them discuss that a little bit. So ways that you could have students come back and share is maybe if you're doing a scavenger hunt and you're making it a little bit like a contest, you can have students, the person who's ready to speak is just raise their hand. You're going to know who's available first to talk, so you can go through the list that way. You can have them put their answers in the chat, just like when we ask questions. If they've found something, they can put that information in the chat for everybody to read. If students, you can also make them a presenter. So if somebody comes in and they want to say something and they want to share some things on their screen, you can make them a presenter and they're able to pull in maybe files or photos or things as well that way. And then the last way that you can kind of move this, it's kind of a combination thing for something like this, maybe this styles assessment, then you can bring them into a breakout group and they can discuss it in their different styles and then come back and report. So those are just some kind of mostly independent activities. That last one becomes a group activity as well. If you're doing something like this, if there's something that you want students to do ahead of time, make sure that you prep them or let them know, for instance, hey, I want you to have a piece of paper and a marker near you, or you want to make sure that you're on a device that you can quick do a web search and come back. The other thing you want to be careful of in something like this is just the timing for one thing, and just always, I sometimes when you send students away to do something, just like in class, if we've done something, to pull them back in is a little tough. I think in the online environment, it can be a little harder too. So if they've gotten off of there, maybe they checked Facebook really quick, quick. So just have a good plan in circling back and know that you want to try to limit the time away from this environment to not do too much. So I wouldn't do like 10 minutes of search time. It would be something quick back and forth. And keep in mind that not all students may have the tech to be able to have multiple windows open and stay connected into the course site. So those are, so these are some great ideas, but there's just some caveats with that as well. Other ways that we can make this is doing some questioning. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a poll. So now the poll takes me a little bit to set up. It's not something that you can have set up ahead of time. So what I actually do is I have this typed out beforehand. And I've got my question typed out beforehand, and so then I just copy and paste it in here. So ahead and start the poll. So have any of you actually met Mission, our NIU mascot? So you can see in real life time, so more of you have met Mission than I would have. I have not met Mission yet, and I'm very sad about that. So I'm looking forward to when I'm going to be able to meet him. So great. So we've got quite a few people responding, right? You can see it's a quick, easy poll. Because I had it already typed out and ready. It was fairly quick for me to put up. I let you guys know what was going on. I was doing that informing part. So you can do yes, no choices, and you can also do multiple choice. So thank you for everybody who's responded. I'm going to go ahead and stop the poll there. And then another way that I do polls is sometimes using the whiteboard. So we're going to practice that. So let me give you a chance to, I'm going to change the settings. So the whiteboard is now on. So I want you to go ahead and do some practice. So there's a few different tools. If you use this tool right here, the pencil tool, this is going to be up in the upper left-hand corner of your screen in the Blackboard Collaborate window. You can see a pencil. You can also see, you can draw shapes, you can type. So if you go ahead and click either of these icons, go ahead and try the pencil if you want, and just right here, anywhere on the screen, go ahead and practice drawing a shape or typing a code. We're going to use that a little bit later. A lot of folks want to know, hey, can I control that? Because this is something that can happen on every slide, and yes, you can control it. You can turn this off. You go to the gear symbol right here, and you can turn it off while you are in session. So, and also, this allows the moderator to erase everything. So you guys don't see that one, but I've got a little eraser button. So, it looks like people are, yeah, I love that people can even type up information without even using the type tool. So, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and clear that. So you can see it's just easy to clear, one click of the button. So now we're going to practice this. So one way I've also done, if I don't, feel like I have a lot of time to be able to type that in or put it in there and pop up the poll, I just put it on the slide. So in this case, I want to know, has anybody ever used the whiteboard feature in a Collaborate session before for themselves in one of their sessions? So go ahead and make a mark under yes or no. Use whatever that tool that you want to use. Have you anybody has tried that? All right, so we haven't tried that. Somebody may have. Looks like somebody's on the yes side, in the middle. Yeah, great. So we've got some people back and forth who've done a little bit of that. So, but most of you haven't tried it. And sometimes it's hard to think of why. So this is one way that I like using it. It's kind of fun, gets people interactive. They like to engage with it. You can use it for quizzing in a sense. So in this case, what is the NIU tagline? So go ahead and make a mark where you think the tagline is. And one nice thing about this is totally anonymous. We don't know who is putting the answer in, so it's a really low stakes for anybody who's doing that. So got question marks, okay. All right, so some of you, this is me in the red. So the right answer is your future, our focus. So that is our tagline. Some of these over here is actually from the from our Husky Fight song. So these are lyrics that you probably have heard somewhere, but this is our actual tagline. So other ways that I use this is to kind of talk about, this is just one example, is I will talk about usability. And so I will ask students different questions. So look at this, pretend this is a website, mark where you would go, where would you click in all of this big page? Where would you click if you wanted to go to the home page of a website, if this was a nice, beautiful website? Go ahead and make a mark where you usually click. Yeah, top left, that's right. Okay, where do you usually find search? Where do you go to search for something on the website? Usually kind of in the right-hand side. So folks, all right, I'm going to go ahead and clear that again. Where do you go for navigation? Where do you go to, so you don't necessarily type something in the search, you want to go to a specific page. Where are the areas you go for navigation? Yeah, either the left-hand side or across the top, and sometimes both as you get into the website. So this is, for me, this is just kind of a nice way. It gives me a bridge to talk about how we use conventions, and there's certain things that people get used to. And as we're doing course design and we're laying out our course sites in Blackboard, it's really nice to have some consistency between the different course sites so students know where to go. They don't have to think too hard. But I love using the whiteboard for feature to get people connected with that. A couple other ways, I'm going to kind of hurry through these too. So some other ways that you can do this, Stephanie Richter, our director, has this in one of her presentations about humanizing an online course, and she talks about creating the climate and culture of the course. So what she does is have people just mark where they identify, like what do you, if you see one of these pictures, what do you see your course like? What would be the atmosphere or the climate of your course? Which picture would best describe your course? So she'll have people select it, and then they'll type Y into the chat box. So definitely, I like the smooth sailing one. That's the one I'm kind of hoping for now. It's kind of open and introspective, and we've got people kind of a linear leading people along a path. So definitely some fun things here. I think the crab is kind of fun, so you're scurrying and you're industrious with that. One of the other things that you can do with this is I will have students in one of the workshops identify maybe where they see connections with module objectives, where they see active learning. So I ask people to look for things. There's enough information to have more than one person be able to connect with this. And I say either underline things or use boxes to outline things. I could see this also being used maybe in writing. So people can talk about where do you see the thesis statement, and people can look at that. Where do you maybe see some fragments or different things? So it's a way to kind of have the class weigh in on questions and even evaluate and review something together. So those are all kind of some different ideas how you might be able to use the whiteboard. Excuse me. I'm going to pause it for one. I'm going to mute myself for 1 second. All right, I'm back. So it was informing you I needed to take a quick sip of water. So there we go from that. So with this, you can also use, going back to the questioning idea interaction, we can use the chat area. We can also have people raise their hands to speak. So I'm going to ask everybody, either put in the chat area, or if you want to actually talk, go ahead and raise your hand. What has worked well for you in this transition to remote learning? So what has worked well for you in this transition to remote learning? What is something that you've tried? Doesn't have to be specifically on Collaborate, but what is one thing that you said, hey, I really appreciated that? So keep in mind that when you ask people to answer this, it takes a little bit of time. So Rose, looks like you have something. So go ahead and unmute your mic and let us talk about it.
This is fabulous.
Oh, good. I like fabulous.
I love this. I had my mic muted, but I called my husband in the room. I said, come see this whiteboard. This is fabulous.
Awesome.
This is very exciting. This is just
Good.
what I wanted out of this. So thank you.
Awesome. All right. Good deal. Well, thank you. I'll take compliments any day. I love those. All right. So some of the folks in the chat too, Betty, you're talking about not changing everything. Yeah. In this remote teaching, you don't have to recreate your entire course. Some of it is just a matter of how do we quickly move things online. Lydia, you've appreciated the extra trainings. Tim, no commute. Yeah, I live in Rockford, so I've appreciated the no commute as well. So we've got a few people enjoying that. Joel, you like the quiz feature on Blackboard. That's great. So it's always good to kind of think through a little bit about what are some of the good things that we've connected with? And who knows, maybe there's something that we carry on in the future to some of our other courses. Rob, you talked about VoiceThread, really getting some of those video discussion boards in there as well. So awesome things. So I'm glad that you found some things that are working for you. I'm going to talk a little bit about group work as well. So we're not going to do the breakout sessions. We're not going to take the time to do the to break out into groups and come back, but there is a wonderful session. We've got it recorded. If you go to that go.niu KT workshops, it's called Facilitating Small Group Discussion Online Using Blackboard Collaborate Breakout Rooms. So you will really get a full kind of breadth of that. So you can look under that, under the share feature, and go to the breakout room. So that's where you find it. Tim, you asked a question, where is VoiceThread? I will send you some information about that as part of my follow-up email to everybody. So I will do that for you. So it's an outside tool, but it does integrate in Blackboard, and we have some workshops and things on that too. So I will get you that information. So there are different things, just like we take in our class, going back to the group work, there are different things that we can integrate to this class into these breakout rooms. If we want to separate students into different rooms to let them talk, it could be brainstorming ideas. It could be discussing certain concepts. Maybe have them solve a particular problem, and then each group can come back and talk about how they solved it. Looking at case studies. So maybe you assign each group a case study and they come back and talk about what happened, or with some of my case studies, there's separate questions. So I'll assign separate questions to each group, and they can come back, discuss it among themselves, and then come back and tell the rest of the class what answers they have. Even doing some negotiations. So you could break students up and give them different, kind of goes into that role-playing idea that they have different roles in these negotiations, and you can use this Blackboard Collaborate breakout groups to allow them to do some real-time negotiation with that, or do some simulations as well. So these are all ideas for that group work part. That you can get them connecting. So definitely think that's kind of all I'm going to say on that, because this other workshop really does quite a good job. But it's just thinking through those ideas and then just planning ahead a little bit. One thing I will note about the breakout groups, there is a little bit of time to break out into the separate groups and to shuffle around a little bit. So those are all things you think through as you're planning for your session. Question is, can individuals share videos like digital stories in groups and discuss fair feedback? So they do have access to the tools to be able to share things and to be able to do that. And then depending on how they've uploaded it, and that workshop will tell you more about that, you're able to share files and bring them in. So if they've uploaded a file into their group thing, as a moderator, you should be able to grab the group and be able to bring that in so the whole group can see it as well. So there's definitely ways that they can do that. So I don't know exactly what you're thinking with that, but it sounds like an interesting project. So part of the ways too that you can stop through and think about how to just kind of assess as you're going along. One of the things is you can just kind of check in with everybody, see how everybody's doing. So in this case, I'd like you to raise your hand if you see like you can implement some of these ideas. So you've got people raising their hands as you're thinking about that. So, oh, go ahead. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. So we've got people who think they can. That's great. So it's just kind of a quick check. And then you can just ask for everybody to lower their hands. So once you're done raising your hand, I've kind of seen it, you can lower your hand and put it down. As the faculty, as the moderator, you can also be able to do that too. With our new, Rose has a question, with our new student training, we would want to show videos. You can do that. I would go back, I would probably start to go back to that question. Is it something you need to do in a live session, or are those videos something that you can post for students to watch when maybe, when a time is better for them? But it's definitely something, there is a share feature. It's the little square button between the gear and the attendees button, the participants. So you can share that. You can go to like a website or YouTube, to YouTube and show that video, and they can do it on the screen. You just want to make sure you're in Chrome. So Rose, you definitely, that was a really, really long way to say yes, you can do that. So thank you for that question. All right, another way that you can assess engagement and kind of up the stakes a little bit. So we did have people who raised their hand and said they could see themselves using it. So in the chat, how will you incorporate one of the ideas we discussed in your Collaborate session? Gotcha, Rose. Okay. So you're thinking about how to get people engaged with it. So there may be that you show clips of videos. I would probably keep them a little bit short. If you're thinking about engagement, keep it a little short and then discuss it afterwards with them. So that might be something, Rose, that might help too. I'm not sure how long everything is, but it's definitely things that, especially when it is, the subjects that can be a little hard to discuss, it may be good to do that in a little controlled environment like this as well. Betty, you're looking at an AMA session to be able to use that. Other ways why people are kind of thinking and putting some of these ideas, if they have that, you could also use emojis. You can just ask people how they're doing. If you're getting to this point, you can just check with students to say maybe they're not understanding something. Rose, yeah, video discussion and discussion poll. That's awesome. That sounds like the perfect fit for this. So student connection via whiteboard. Great, Joel. Awesome. Yeah, the emoji. Yeah, it's kind of because you know what? We can't see Lydia. Lydia said that she really liked the emoji idea. And part of the reason why I read out the chat is one, so everybody knows which one I'm addressing, but two, when we record these and put these up for viewing, the chat doesn't go along with it. So then if people are watching the recording, they know the question that I'm responding to. But Lydia, we can't see the confused looks on our students' faces, right? So we don't, on this session, especially if we're sharing slides, we're not going to have everybody's video faces. And so by doing some of this check-in, we can see if their mind is blown and if it's good in a good way, or if they're just way confused and they need us to go over something. And that's something, going back to that informing idea, we really need to also give our students the freedom to feel like they can ask questions. A lot of them may kind of sit back and not want to ask questions. So you may even want to put up something like this and say, put in the chat and give me one thing that you're a little confused on. So when you give them that permission, you actually ask for it, students may be more likely to share that and to be able to connect with that. So you want to make sure that you're really opening up that door for students to be able to interact as well, because they may not feel like, well, they probably don't want a question about this, or they don't want me to stop what they're doing. Yeah, that's true, Lydia. You can do quick connections and have that in the face-to-face. You can do little polling and things like that too. So that's awesome. So that's just another way that you can bring some of these principles into your face-to-face course. And I think when it comes down to it, we often say in the Faculty Development and Instructional Design Center that teaching is teaching. So whether it's maybe the tools shift a little bit and maybe our format and the way we approach things, but underlying that's that core of teaching and that heart of teaching is that, we want to make sure that we're, for instance, open to students to ask questions and talk about things. So going on to another ways that you can make this interactive or connecting, more engaging, engaging online sessions is just being able to humanize the environment. So some of them are little, like checking your audio. So you want to make sure that maybe you have a headset. If you don't have a headset, you want to check to make sure that your laptop mic is working. You could record yourself a little earlier just to see how you sound. Might be something that you have to get a little closer to the mic or something like that. So just kind of checking how the feel of the session will go. Being able to allow other voices when you have time, when it's feasible. So just not everybody will necessarily want to speak up, but just using the simple hand raising thing and allow people to do this verbally or in the chat helps to humanize. So we know that there are people behind all of these little avatars and icons that we've chosen for ourselves. Using the webcam periodically. So that's why I always turn that on at the beginning when I'm introducing myself, just so people know that it's real and even while I'm in the session, like I just waved at the camera right now. It's not on, but I still play to the camera for some reason. But so you can do that. You can make sure that you can click on the webcam every now and then. I like keeping it off when the slides are going. I think it's a little less distracting. We can focus on the slides, and it helps me stay like a little distracted to be like, hey, that's a weird face I'm making or something. So, but having that camera on, maybe do it in the start and at the ending or in the question times. Rows, how many can be here at one time? So in general, depending on the browser, you can have 4 to 6 people whose face, I call it faces, whose webcams actually show. The Collaborate will prioritize audio over video, so if there's a lot of traffic or something going on, you'll see less video or it'll become more pixelated. So it's not as many as something like a Zoom feature or something. Encouraging feedback icons. So just in those emojis, we also have things like thumbs up or thumbs down. So there may be something that you're like, hey, throughout, do you have, oh, Rose, sorry. That's where I get a little distracted in the chat. I think they've done it in like ideal times. You can have as many as 100 people. But I would say, we've done, when I first did these workshops and everybody was piling on, I think I had 80 or 90. It was 94 people in one of these sessions. So as these sessions get bigger, though, you want to think about, there's not necessarily, you're not going to be able to do maybe the same type of engagement and interaction. So the chat would definitely be there. If you have a large amount of people, I would make sure you have a couple people monitoring the chat while you're trying to work this. I probably would have the cameras turned off and maybe even the audio, because that's a lot of people to try to manage. But it definitely can have quite a few people. So I hope that answered your question. So going back to humanizing the environment, is having those encouraging, like those feedback icons. So maybe there's a thumbs up, maybe there is a thumbs down on how things, or just to get an idea of how things are going. It's kind of like the same theme as the emojis. I think using those emojis helps us connect. It helps bring an emotion layer to this workshop than we wouldn't necessarily have just looking at the screens and not being able to see each other and hear everybody's voices. It gives us another way to express ourselves. And then just making sure, of course, that you're referring to people by name. Lydia, it will be on the recording. So you can do that. It was actually just emojis that I went through and picked up. If you click on all those emojis are in there. So it's just something I grabbed a screenshot of. So, and Rob, you're right. A lot of our younger students, our traditional students, using those feedback icons and that, it makes them more comfortable, and being able to recognize them by name, all of that really helps them feel a little bit more engaged. They're a little bit more used to that environment. So a lot of them, the online environment, but it's still intimidating when you're in there with a professor or a faculty member or an instructor, whatever it is. So that is something that you'll be able to use these things, kind of gets to where they're comfortable with too. All right, great. Uh, and then lastly, when you're closing and following up your sessions, one of the things is it's helpful just to kind of summarize what you've talked about in there, just to kind of remember, to help people remember the full breadth. If there's anything, if maybe there were specific takeaways that you wanted your students to have, you want to make sure you kind of highlight those just like you do in a class session. Think about doing a quick follow-up survey just to check how their experience was. Was the sound good? Was your pace okay? I know that tends to be a little quick. I get excited. When I get excited, I talk a little quicker. So little things like that just to help you to improve that experience for the next time as well. Try to leave time for questions so people are able to interact. If you're able, Mariana, thanks for the thumbs up. So when you're able to, we've done it throughout. So this one isn't a full hour workshop, and so that gives me time to be able to have questions in between and be able to interact, kind of like I do in a real class, in a face, not a real class, that was a bad thing to say, a face-to-face class. So leaving time for questions is good. Be sure to thank everybody and let them know how to leave the session. Particularly in Blackboard Collaborate, you need everybody to leave the room or leave the session so that the recording is able to process. So if you've got somebody just hanging out in there, it won't be able to process. So if you do have somebody, you might have people, there might be people, most of the people will kind of leave kind of quickly. They'll say bye, they'll be like, thanks, bye. And they'll go on with their stuff, but you might have some people hanging back. It may be just like those students who kind of hang back after class because they want to ask you some questions, but they don't want to do it in a big group. So you can make sure that you can connect with them. So what I'll do is I'll give it some time. If I see somebody kind of lingering, I'll just kind of call out their name, ask if they had a specific question. Sometimes they do, sometimes they've just kind of forgotten to, maybe they had the window open, forgot to close it. Nancy, do they have to leave? Generally, if they close the browser, that will kick them out of the session. I think for some reason they were having some trouble with that. So up in the upper left-hand corner, they can leave the session by clicking on the hamburger menu, but you as a moderator can also have them leave. So you'll see little icons. It'll show like a little page with an arrow to the left that they've kind of left the session. So you'll be able to see who's still logged in. And what you can do is there's a little kebab to the right of their name in the participants list. So as a moderator, you can click on that and you can remove them from the session. So that's something I always hang around just to make sure that everybody's out. I will kind of give I'll do final call. So I'll let everybody know that if nobody has any questions, I've hung out for a little bit, I just let them know that I'm going to be removing them from the session. And that way I just make sure that I'm the last one in the room, turn out the lights before I go out the door is kind of how I see it. So, and finally, you can also provide a follow-up activity to apply the learning. So helping take it beyond the session that you're doing right there. Maybe you set up an assignment in here. If you do something like that, make sure that you record it so that all students can have access to it. But maybe even like a reflection, or maybe it leads into a discussion board. So there's lots of different ways that you can kind of connect everything as you're doing this, and don't let this be just kind of like a flash in the pan, in a sense. Okay, we did this, we checked it off. How do we actually apply this beyond just this hour that we spent together? So that is all of my ideas and all of that. So yes, I will send up a follow-up email that will thank you for attending. I will I'll do some links to the voice thread. And just kind of remembering, Betty, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did have a question, if it's okay.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
um, I have 3 sections of the same class, and
Mm-hmm.
I have not yet done Collaborate. I would like to
Okay.
do an open session where students can kind of wander in and out from any section. Is there any way to do that?
I would host it just in one course. So like either your course site or have it a session, kind of like doing office hours. And what you can do is send them a guest link. And that's what everybody received today. I sent everybody a guest link. So anybody who has that website address can click on it and they'll come right to this session. So
Okay.
I'll put I'll give you information about adding the guest link in my
Great.
follow-up email as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely. My pleasure. All right. So these were the things we covered. We talked about introducing and orienting your participants or students to the session, talking about informing them, letting them know what they're seeing on their screen is okay, informing them of the content you wanted to go through, really focus on that active learning and feedback portion, talked a little bit about humanizing that environment, and then closing and following up. So, and if you need more support, this is our support website. So you can go to keepteaching.niu.edu. If you look under these resources, that's where we'll have a lot of information about the tools and things like VoiceThread or Kaltura. So it was such a pleasure. Thank you all for being such great participants and interacting with me on that. You guys know that it makes a big difference when you have people on either in the room or the other side of the screen connecting with you. So thank you guys for taking the time to be here. Have a great day. And so, Ben, you can send them links to the recording. So I will add that in there as well. So send links to the recording. I'll put a link in the recording for you. Yep, absolutely. Yep, sure. Thank you, everybody. No, they can't, Ben, they can't access it unless it is in Blackboard, but we have to go get the link for them. So unless they have that hyperlink, they won't be able to access the recording themselves. Absolutely, my pleasure. Any other questions? All right, that's what I have for today. So you guys can leave this session. I'll hang out. If anybody else has any other questions, you can leave the session again by going up to the hamburger at the top and then just clicking on leave session at the bottom. Thank you again for joining us. Got a few people still in the room. Anybody have any other questions? All right, I will hang out for a little bit here and then we'll connect a little. You're very welcome. Thank you. You should. You should be able to, everything at least that I said or anybody who called in, Tim, you'll be able to hear that. So definitely. Were you having sound problems, Tim? Are you able to hear me right now? Yes, I will send a thank you email with that. So, all right. So it looks like there's just a couple people left. I'm going to go ahead and have everybody leave the session. I will do that, Rob. All right. Take care. Thanks for being here, Rob.